All right, good morning, everyone. I'm here to talk about MultiSAR. I know that there's a lot of people in the room that probably already know a lot about MultiSAR, but hopefully there's some new people here that haven't really heard about the program and would like to know a little bit more about it. So of course it's a landscape approach to species at risk management and conservation mostly in southern Alberta. So it is a voluntary stewardship program. So landowners have the choice. It's up to them whether they want to work with us or not. It's in the Grassland natural region of Alberta. And we focus on kind of three big things. One is influencing land management decisions. So these are, I won't talk too much about these, but these are kind of easier management decisions that we can talk with landowners about, such as things like maybe moving salt blocks away from watering sources to move cattle around on the landscape a bit more, or maybe they're going to graze a tame pasture earlier in the spring so that their native pastures could have a bit of growing time before the cattle go onto the pastures. Creating habitat improvements, so I'll talk about these a bit more later, but we focus a lot on win-win situations with landowners where we can give them habitat enhancements that we call them that also benefit them. So it benefits wildlife, benefits the ranch. And then kind of the big point here is that we put our money where our mouth is. So if we're suggesting something that they can do on their land, we're going to come in with some financial help to see that happen. And that's just all to help in the sustainability of rangelands in Alberta. So MultiSAR itself stands for multiple species at risk. And so that's what we're most focused on, but we're really a habitat program as well. Like we're really working on the habitat for multiple species. It's also multidisciplinary. We have wildlife biologists, range agrologists all working together very closely with the rancher to do our projects on their land. This particular picture shows all of our partners. So it's also multi-partner, obviously the landowner being one of the biggest pieces of the pie, of course. And then Prairie Conservation Forum, which is who I work for, and Alberta Conservation Association do the bulk of the groundwork, work closely with the Government of Alberta, public lands agrologists, and species at risk biologists as well. And then these other organizations like Cows and Fish, which you just saw, will come and sometimes do riparian inventories on lands that we're working on as well. And some big funding partners and others that help push our program forward. So the biggest piece to this, of course, is engaging landowners. I mean, without the landowners, we don't really have a program. So way back when, like we started in 2002, so we're on our 23rd year now. Like, how do you start a program like this? It's kind of hard. You'll have workshops or open houses, and people aren't really sure whether they want to work with you or not. And I have to give a shout out to John Ross here because he is our first landowner that we worked with, still working with him. So that's been a great 23-year partnership that we have with him and his ranch. And so that's really what's important to us, is maintaining, keeping these lines open with the landowners, and we'll continue to work with them as long as they want to work with us. So this map just shows where the native prairie is left in Alberta. The Prairie Conservation Forum has a committee called the State of the Prairie that has been looking at data from Agriculture Canada or Foods Canada that basically shows from 1990 to 2020 the rate of loss of native prairie, but also it shows us how much we have left. So the dry mixed area, of course, the dry mixed grass is that lighter area, and you can see that's where the bulk of our native grasslands are. And that on the west side there in the foothills is kind of where we have the least amount. So altogether we have roughly 45.7% native cover in our grasslands natural region left. And so that's why it's important for us to be out there working with landowners to try to conserve what's left and try to slow down that rate of loss. This just shows some of the areas where we are currently working. So the yellow area there is kind of the South Saskatchewan region, so we do a lot of work there. The west side there, in the foothills areas, we've got our MultiSAR West projects, and then, of course, that crosshatched area down in the southeast corner of the province is critical sage-grouse habitat. So that is where we mostly are working. So what does MultiSAR do? Our biggest program is our habitat conservation strategies, and I'll get into a little bit more about what those are in the next few slides, but I don't want to miss out on the other three that we have offered in the past as well. So the Species at Risk Conservation Plans, or SARC plans, is a plan that we've been able to offer throughout the Grasslands region, which we don't do with our core programs. That one is more for people that are really interested in wildlife and what they might have on their lands. They tend to be smaller properties, like a lot of acreage owner type situations, and it's kind of a quick way to get in touch with these people and kind of tell them what they might have on their land and maybe some management practices that they could put in place in their area for the species they might have. And we don't do as many of those anymore. We're really focused more on our habitat conservation strategies. They keep us pretty busy, but it's always open if somebody comes to us and wants to know. We do send out a wildlife biologist to visit their property and talk with them and, go through some of the things that might be beneficial on their land. We also do beneficial management practices, so BMPs, which is very specific if a landowner just wants to do something particular on their land, like let's say put up a hawk pole, then we can work with them to see if where they want to put it is appropriate, if there's any other species that might be negatively affected by that sort of thing. And then our newest one is habitat management plans, and we kind of started doing those because we were getting pretty busy with our HCSs, and we wanted to be able to offer people something. So this is kind of similar to an HCS, except we've kind of given our range people a bit of a break because that takes the longest, of course, the range work. And so the wildlife bios will still go out and do wildlife inventories on the land, but they will also collect some range information like litter levels or structure of the community, maybe what the highest or most present grass species or forb species might be, that sort of thing. Where there might be problem areas, or if we need to get an agrologist in to assess, then that's what those are. So the habitat conservation strategy, I'll be talking about those now. And it's basically a way to have sustainable cattle ranching and wildlife inhabiting the same place. So what we do is a baseline inventory. It's pretty intensive wildlife surveys, and then our range crew, of course, goes out and collects pretty detailed range information, inventories, range health, all of that fun stuff. And then from that, we go back to the office, we analyze the data, and we can come up with general and pasture-specific recommendations for the entire property. And we won't put that in the report unless it's something that the landowner is willing to do. And so at this point, we sit down and have a meeting, and we talk about the different areas of their ranch and what sorts of things might help them manage their ranch. And everything that they're interested in, of course, is stuff that we're looking to implement. And then we call them habitat improvements or habitat enhancements. So after we've sat down with the landowner, and they bring ideas forward too on things that they might like to do. And that's where we decide what we can do on the landscape that's going to hopefully be a win-win situation for both the ranching operation and the species at risk. And then after all that's done, of course, we give them their report, and we don't just run away. Like, we continue to talk to them over the years, and any kind of habitat enhancements that we do put in, we like to revisit every couple of years to see if they're doing, what we kind of are hoping that they're going to be doing, what the landscape is happening there, what kind of wildlife are in the area, that sort of thing. And then the evaluation program, of course, we try very hard to go back 5 to 7 years, but it's getting tougher and tougher to do, to be honest, with the more land we have. But that is definitely the goal, is to get back and reassess the property. So we'll take a portion of what we had done the first year and reassess. So what do we do before we go out in the field? So these are for our range and wildlife inventories. So we do use the Grassland vegetation inventory, which is a biophysical inventory of the grasslands natural region of Alberta. It's very detailed. It has been a while now since it started. I think it was 2006 or so that they started doing that, and the whole grassland region is done. But as you can see in this map, it just shows those colors are just different, really, soil types and stuff. So, you got your loamies and stuff like that. And so this is an example of what our survey plots look like on a property. I don't know if you can really see the black squiggly lines there, but those are all GVI polygons, and we fit all of our survey points for both range and wildlife into those GVI polygons. And that's to make sure that we're kind of in the same plant community type, and that they're both kind of being done in the same spot. So this is showing our wildlife survey plots, and those are circular plots. They're either 100 meters in diameter or 200 meters in diameter. And the way we do those is to go out, of course, at sunrise, and it's big on birds, so we record everything that we see, but obviously we're doing a lot of bird surveys at that time. And so they're 5-minute surveys. Okay, they're 5-minute surveys where we're listening and recording everything that we see out there. And so we also do we have to do targeted surveys as well, because you're not going to catch everything when you're out there. So we do targeted surveys for things like burrowing owls. So after our 5-minute survey point, if we're in burrowing owl habitat, then we'll play callbacks to see if anybody's around. Sharp-tailed grouse, we look for leks in early spring. Swift fox, if there's any historic dens, we'll check them out. Raptors, always looking for nests, cliffside or trees. Amphibians, we're checking all the water bodies for any kind of amphibians. Shorthorn lizards, which we do later on, July, August, to see if there's any shorthorn lizards out in Badlands areas. Snake hibernacula surveys we do in the fall. And then bats, we put out bat meters to see what might be out there. And then, of course, our range and tame pasture health assessments. So going out there, doing a complete range inventory for the first time we're out on a property, looking at what kind of plants are out there, the plant communities, whether you have your expected layers present, like what's your litter like. And that all kind of feeds into a health score. And the health scores that we have we have 5 categories that we split them up into, because we feel that it just gives the landowner a little bit more information about what's happening out there. So, the healthy categories, 80% and up or 75% and up, and then unhealthy is under 50%. And what that allows us to do then is to put those range health scores onto a map of the property. And you can see here, the dark green being the high healthy portions of the property. And on every property kind of has all of these categories generally. That's just what they look like. And so you can see here, in the high healthy category, you're going to see things more like Sprague's pipits. You can see their nests there. They use a lot of that litter accumulation to build and hide their nests. And then you've got on the flip side, the really what we would call unhealthy, but still very valuable habitat. Actually, we've got a thick-billed longspur there. That's where you find them, right? They like to have some bare ground. And then somewhere in the middle, you have species like burrowing owls, which need a bit of a range of habitat types to really be happy. They need some short grass, they need some tall grass, all that sort of stuff. And then, again, on the Badlands areas, that might not be that great for cattle grazing. Let's say you might have things like short-horned lizards. So really, this look at this particular property just shows how important a range of conditions is to the pastures, the landscape, really. You need to have all of those. We don't want to see too much, like a huge amount of unhealthy. You never want to see that, but it is still very valuable out there. There are species that are adapted to live in that, and they need that as well. So we do like to see this kind of heterogeneous look on the landscape. So after we've kind of gone through all of these maps and talked about them, it's time to do some implementation. So a lot of things that we work on, of course, down here is water projects, obviously water being very important. You could see on the lower left there, that was natural spring, and cattle get in there and muck it up. And so one of the things we help landowners do is fence it off. And then in the middle there, you can see that's that same water trough that's down below that spring. Much better for the cattle. It's clean water. They prefer drinking out of that. Much better for the landscape as well. We do a lot of portable watering units, so you can fence off a riparian area or a wetland, put a portable waterer there, move it around if you need to. Just get better distribution of cattle, but also kind of keep those water bodies clean. We also do a lot of fencing projects, so wildlife-friendly fencing. You can see the one on the top left there, the spacing of the wires, and of course, the bottom wire being smooth. Sometimes top wire as well, depending on what the landowner wants to do. That weird spacing there between the top two wires, it prevents, hopefully, things like leg entanglement from ungulates that jump fences. The smooth wire, I don't know how much you guys know about pronghorn, but they do go under fences. They don't like to hop over them very much, so they do sometimes get stuck in pastures. Snow gets high, they can't get under. When they are going under, they're often scraping their backs, which can cause, obviously, problems in winter with, no fur covering their skin there, and problems with infection and all that sort of stuff. Another fencing, like fencing off riparian areas. There's fence reflectors that you could put up so that animals can see the fences so that they don't, like in this case, get tangled in them. Putting fence barriers around trees that might have species like ferruginous hawks nesting in them. Cattle also like to hang out under the trees, and there's not a lot of trees around, so just try to protect the root system a little bit more with some fencing there. And then this portable electric fencing, which we've been doing a lot more of in recent years. You can move cattle really easily just by moving that electric fence around. So all ways to just get better utilization, but also, not concentrating cattle in certain areas and that sort of thing. We've done a lot of installation of hawk poles in the past, so this is for ferruginous hawks. And happy to say that in the last Government of Alberta inventory, the ferruginous hawk numbers are up. So maybe these are helping. there's a good idea that they are. They're well utilized for the most part. So these have been, and they've been really popular as well. Like, people really like to put these up, and natural control of ground squirrels rather than using chemical. We've done a few native grassland restoration projects. So this one just shows kind of the process from going from cropland back to native grass. I mean, there's a certain amount of luck involved. You hope that your weather is good and it works out as well as this one. But this property, of course, this is an ACA property, and had some good rain years when they initially first reclaimed it, and lots of species at risk starting to come back now. And it's looking great, and it's just kind of filling in some of the gaps out there back to, leading to more native grass. Other little things like sort of more educational, putting out signs for things like snakes on roads. Some of those areas, they do like to come sun themselves on the roads. So, there's a lot of snake mortality due to road traffic, of course. So just some opportunities to maybe put out some signs and make people aware that they're out there. And then our monitoring and evaluation program. So like I said, when we put in a habitat enhancement, we do like to go back every 2 years or so if we can, and we'll do some more range work around that enhancement and some wildlife surveys to see if that enhancement is helping. And then I kind of bumped it up from 5 to 10 years. We try to go back and do a reassessment of the property. So we don't look at every single site that we visited, but we do go back and do a portion of the site and, relook at range health and redo the wildlife surveys. So these are our accomplishments since we've been around for now 23 years. We've done 96 habitat conservation strategies on over 800,000 acres of land. We've done 13 habitat management plans on over 18,000 acres. We've done 83 SARC plans covering 156,000 acres, 22 BMP assessments covering 58,000 acres. And really, so that's over 1 million acres right there that we've worked on in our 23 years. And then we have the Fish and Wildlife Management Information System here in Alberta that the government of Alberta runs, and we've input over 100,000 records of species into that record. So we do put a considerable amount of our data into that system, which helps with species at risk recovery plans and such. And so far we've completed in our monitoring over 550 habitat enhancement projects. So it's been a really successful part of our program, and obviously like to continue doing that. So in summary, we really work hard to establish good relationships with the landowners in the community, government, non-government partners. The voluntary approach has been really widely accepted by participants. And we've managed to find a lot of win-win solutions between conservation and wildlife in the ranching community. And the holistic approach that involves government and non-government organizations, landholders, biologists, agrologists, has worked really well for the program as well. And so those are some of our partners, which I kind of showed earlier. And just Brad's information and my information in case you have any questions or want to know more about MultiSAR. That's all I've got.